What if I told you that everything you believe about happiness, success, and personal freedom is wrong? What if your past, your trauma, and even your deepest insecurities had no power over you, unless you allowed them to? Welcome to a radical new way of thinking, inspired by the life-changing book The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. In this video, we'll uncover the profound teachings of Alfred Adler, the psychologist who dared to challenge Sigmund Freud, and explore how his ideas can transform your life. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you might just see the world and yourself differently. Chapter 1. Deny Trauma. You are not defined by your past. Most of us believe that our past experiences shape who we are. We think that childhood trauma, failures, and setbacks determine our personality and limit our potential. But Adlerian psychology makes a shocking claim. The past does not define you. You are not the victim of your past. Instead, you assign meaning to your experiences. Imagine two people with identical childhood traumas. One becomes successful, while the other remains stuck. The difference? It's not the trauma itself, but the meaning they attach to it. Trauma is not an unchangeable fate. It is a narrative, and you are the author. Adler argues that dwelling on the past keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-pity and limitation. The idea that I cannot be happy because of my past is a belief, not a fact. If you want to change your life, you must shift your perspective from cause to purpose. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I do now to move forward?" This is where the power of choice comes in. You can continue reinforcing a painful story, or you can rewrite it. You can say, "My past was difficult, but I will not let it dictate my future." Imagine yourself standing at a crossroads. One path leads to endless revisiting of past wounds, while the other leads to a future where you are free to redefine yourself. Which will you choose? Think of people who have overcome hardship. Those who grew up in broken homes, faced rejection, or endured loss. Some let their pain control them, while others rise above it. The difference is not their circumstances, but their perspective. The past is a place of reference, not residence. Take a moment to reflect. What beliefs about your past are holding you back? What if you could rewrite the meaning you've given to those experiences? What if instead of thinking, "I am broken," you thought, "I am resilient"? Imagine how liberating that would be. Chapter 2. All problems are interpersonal relationships. Think about it. Why do most of our worries come from relationships? Whether it's fear of judgment, comparison, or the need for validation, nearly all emotional distress stems from how we relate to others. According to Adler, feelings of inferiority are not facts but interpretations. If you believe you are inadequate, it's not because you truly are. It's because you've chosen to see yourself that way. The biggest mistake we make? Trying to gain approval from others instead of focusing on our own values. The truth is, you don't need to compete. You don't need to prove anything. Because life is not a competition. Let's take a practical example. Think of a time when you compared yourself to someone else and felt less than. Now ask yourself, did that comparison make you happier or more miserable? Comparison is a game with no winners. The moment you step out of it, you reclaim your power. Adlerian psychology teaches us that we construct problems based on how we perceive ourselves in relation to others. If you constantly compare yourself to your peers, colleagues, or even strangers on social media, you will always find someone who seems better. But here's the key. Those comparisons are entirely subjective. The image you create of yourself in contrast to others is an illusion, dictated by your own self-perception. But what if you stop comparing? What if, instead of seeing life as a race, you viewed it as a personal journey? Imagine focusing on your own growth rather than measuring it against someone else's timeline. The moment you shift from, "How do I compare to others?" to "How can I improve for myself?" you start living freely. Another critical insight from Adler is that interpersonal conflicts arise when we seek superiority over others. Whether it's a power struggle in relationships, office politics, or social validation, these conflicts stem from an underlying belief that we must win, be right, or outshine others. But Adler flips this idea on its head. Life is not about winning. It's about mutual contribution and finding value within yourself, regardless of external approval. So, how do we escape this cycle of comparison and conflict? The first step is to develop separation of tasks. Ask yourself, whose opinion am I worried about? Who am I trying to impress? If the answer is other people, then you are prioritizing their task over your own well-being. Your only responsibility is to live according to your values and truth. The moment you realize that you don't need external validation, you liberate yourself from the constant pressure of interpersonal struggles. Here's a challenge. For the next week, observe how often you compare yourself to others, on social media, at work, or in conversations. Each time you catch yourself doing it, pause and ask, does this comparison serve me? The answer, more often than not, will be no. By letting go of unnecessary comparisons, you make space for self-acceptance, confidence, and true happiness. Remember, you are not in competition with anyone. The only person you need to surpass is who you were yesterday. Chapter 3. Discard other people's tasks. Stop seeking approval. How often do we live our lives according to the expectations of others? We seek approval, avoid conflict, and even shape our dreams based on what society deems acceptable. But here's a liberating idea. Other people's opinions are not your task. You are only responsible for your own life, your own choices, and your own happiness. Think about how much of your daily stress is tied to other people's expectations. Perhaps you're afraid to say no because you don't want to disappoint someone. Or maybe you hesitate to pursue a passion because of what others might think. Adler calls this living according to other people's tasks. In other words, you are making someone else's judgment more important than your own desires. Let's break it down with a simple scenario. Imagine you are an artist who loves painting, but your parents expect you to become a doctor. You don't enjoy medicine, but the fear of disappointing them keeps you trapped. Whose task is it to decide your career? Yours or theirs? Adler teaches us that other people's reactions, opinions, and judgments are their tasks, not yours. If they feel disappointed, that is their emotional response, not your responsibility. Your task is to live a life that aligns with your truth. One of the biggest fears that keep people trapped is the fear of rejection. We often bend over backward to be liked, to fit in, or to gain social approval. But here's the hard truth. No matter how much you try, you can never control how others feel about you. Some will like you, others won't. That's their task, not yours. Adlerian psychology encourages us to separate our tasks from those of others. The next time you feel pressure to conform, pause and ask yourself, whose task is this? If it's someone else's, let it go. Imagine how light you'd feel if you stopped carrying the weight of others' expectations. Of course, this doesn't mean ignoring kindness, empathy, or social responsibilities. It simply means recognizing the boundary between what you can control and what you cannot. You can control your actions, your mindset, and your values. You cannot control other people's judgments or emotions. So here's a challenge. For 1 week, practice identifying tasks. Every time you feel pressured by someone's opinion, ask yourself, is this my task or theirs? If it's theirs, release it. Focus on your own life, your own dreams, and your own happiness. Because true freedom comes when you stop living for approval and start living for yourself. Chapter 4. Where the center of the world is finding your place in society. Most of us secretly believe we are the center of the world. We see our problems as unique, our struggles as greater than others. But Adler argues that happiness is found in a sense of community. You are part of a much larger world. And the moment you shift your perspective from me to we, your worries begin to fade. When we view ourselves as the center of the universe, we assume that everything happening around us directly relates to us. A friend's cold response, a colleague's short reply, or even a stranger's passing glance can feel like personal attacks. But the truth is, people are far more focused on themselves than on us. The world does not revolve around any single person. Understanding this is the first step toward liberation from social anxiety and the fear of judgment. Adlerian psychology teaches that the goal of interpersonal relationships should not be to seek approval, but to develop a sense of belonging and contribution. Instead of constantly worrying about how others perceive you, ask yourself, how can I contribute to this group, this society, or even just this conversation? When you stop seeking validation and start focusing on giving, your insecurities begin to diminish. Consider a scenario. You enter a room full of strangers. You might instinctively worry, what do they think of me? Do I look okay? Am I making a good impression? But what if instead you walked in with a different mindset? How can I make someone in this room feel comfortable? How can I contribute to a positive experience here? This shift in perspective transforms your social interactions and reduces anxiety. Furthermore, Adler emphasizes that true belonging does not come from trying to fit in, but from embracing one's authentic self. The more you try to conform to societal expectations, the more you suppress your individuality. Paradoxically, the less you seek approval, the more you find genuine acceptance from like-minded people. So, how do we cultivate a sense of community and purpose? It starts with small actions. Engage in conversations without the need to impress. Offer help without expecting anything in return. Express appreciation genuinely, not strategically. When you contribute without ulterior motives, you create a ripple effect of positivity and connection. Here's a challenge. For the next week, practice shifting your focus from what do others think of me to how can I contribute to those around me? Whether it's a kind word, a small act of service, or just being present in a conversation, notice how your mindset changes. As you do this, you'll find that happiness is not about being at the center. It's about being part of something greater. Chapter 5. Live in the present. The courage to be normal. In a world that glorifies being special, many of us feel pressured to stand out, to be extraordinary. But Adler's teachings reveal a surprising truth. The courage to be normal is the real path to happiness. Why? Because the pursuit of specialness often leads to feelings of inadequacy and constant comparison. Instead of trying to impress others, focus on living fully in each moment. Life is not a linear race toward success. It's a dance, a series of moments. And if you can embrace the present without constantly worrying about the future, you'll find true freedom. Modern society is obsessed with the idea of success, achievement, and uniqueness. We are told that we must constantly strive for more recognition, more wealth, more influence. But Adler challenges this mindset. He argues that true happiness comes not from being extraordinary, but from accepting ourselves as we are. This doesn't mean we shouldn't aim to grow or improve, but rather that we don't need external validation to feel worthy. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding that you are enough. Not because you achieved something grand, but simply because you exist. How much pressure would be lifted from your shoulders? What if you could find joy in simple moments? Drinking coffee, taking a walk, spending time with a loved one, without needing to prove anything. Another key aspect of living in the present is shedding the burden of excessive self-consciousness. Many of us are so consumed by how others perceive us that we forget to experience life fully. You might hesitate to dance at a party, express your opinion in a meeting, or even wear an outfit you love, just because of the fear of judgment. But here's the reality. People are far less concerned about you than you think. Most are too preoccupied with their own worries. So how do you cultivate the courage to be normal? Start by practicing mindfulness. When eating, savor the taste of your food. When having a conversation, be fully present without thinking about how you appear. When walking outside, notice the sights and sounds around you. Each moment you fully embrace brings you closer to inner peace. Adler also highlights the importance of contribution. Happiness doesn't come from trying to be better than others. It comes from feeling like we are part of something bigger. Instead of obsessing over personal success, ask, how can I add value to the people around me? This mindset shift leads to a deeper, more fulfilling sense of connection and purpose. Here's a challenge. For the next week, let go of the need to be special. Instead, focus on being present. Find joy in the ordinary. Release the fear of judgment. Notice how this simple shift can bring a profound sense of peace and contentment. Because in the end, happiness isn't about standing above others. It's about standing with them. So, What's the ultimate lesson of the courage to be disliked? It's this: happiness is a choice. It is not something we chase. It is something we cultivate from within. You are not bound by your past. You do not need approval from others, and you are free to live life on your own terms. But it takes courage, the courage to let go, the courage to stand alone, and ultimately, the courage to be disliked. So, the question is, do you have that courage? If you've made it this far, here's a final challenge. Choose one concept from this video and apply it to your life today. Share your experience in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. If this video gave you something to think about, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an insight that could change your life. Drop a comment below. What's one belief about happiness that you're willing to challenge today? Let's start a conversation. See you in the next video.